In Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, we find ourselves in the Salem Woods Cemetery at dawn on October 30th. You see, Tarot and John just managed to repel an attack by some pumpkin skeletal motherfuckers. But unfortunately, some of the thieves were still able to make off with the casket of Sally and Susan, which happens to be this two-headed ghost girl. Now, as Tarot and John try to figure out their next move, John isn't feeling so well. Tarot informs John his wounds were made by magical creatures that have poisoned his body. But John tries to fight through it, and as he makes his way to his feet, he subsequently passes out. Now, before John passed out, he instructed Sally and Susan to tell the other ghosts to let the captive humans go, as they did catch some of the thieves attempting to rob the graveyard. Now, as Sally and Susan deliver the news to everyone in the graveyard, she's greeted by Brandy, which happens to be John's ghost girlfriend, or at least she was until she died. But elsewhere, we see John embracing Tarot and giving her a kiss. But next thing you know, a skeletal figure grabs John before asking him if he really knows what he's getting himself into. John wakes up and begins to take note of his surroundings before realizing he's wearing the most embarrassing pair of underwear. John covers up with a robe and then proceeds to make his way through this labyrinth of hallways and stairs. John notices this place is huge, with 40-foot ceilings, marble pillars, huge staircases, and beautiful statues. As John proceeds to make his way through the lower levels, he sets his eyes on this mansion's loveliest masterpiece. Her curvaceous body glistens like polished marble as she emerges from the pool. She is everything that is a woman, a goddess of luminous flesh and grace, a fragrance of purity and innocence, the essential form of knowledge and mystery. Now, Tarot is glad to see John is feeling better, but John is embarrassed as he's enamored by Tarot's beauty. John asks Tarot how she got him here, but Tarot lets him know she had the help of some friends, as fairies are a very real thing. Tarot tells John that she is a witch, but as she whips him up something warm to drink, he asks if this is a witch's brew, but she tells him it's simply hot chocolate. Now, in order to get John up to speed, Tarot starts from the beginning. Tarot lets John know that the name she was born with was Rowan. But once witches come of age, they're allowed to choose a magical name. The name Rowan chose was Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, while her sister took the name Raven Hex. Tarot and Raven grew up in a family of witches, but society was never kind to them, as society usually tends to try to destroy what it doesn't understand. The witches tried to share their gifts with the outside world, but the outside world viewed them as dangerous because they were different. One day, as the kids were throwing rocks at Raven and Rowan, one of the rocks hit Rowan in the head. Enraged by their actions, Raven unleashed a little bit of her magic, and she caused a tree branch to fall on the children. Raven and Rowan were immediately suspended, but when their father saw the cut on Rowan's head, and he heard what happened at the schoolyard, he was immediately enraged. He contacted the school and demanded answers, but the school simply expelled the girls on the spot. The last thing they told their father was, if you would have just dressed and acted normal like the rest of the world, none of this wouldn't have happened. Enraged by this, their father conjured up horrors with the Book of Forbidden Shadows. The school would burn down later that night, and when the townsfolk would come for the witches, they would be greeted by nothing but shadow creatures. In the end, the magic their father used to burn down the school ended up consuming him. There's a threefold rule: whatever you do comes back 3 times over. Upon seeing this, Raven took the loss of her father the hardest. The loss hardened her, and in the coming years, Raven would walk a very dark path. Raven vowed revenge on humankind, but after ignoring several warnings that necromagic would upset the balance, Raven had to be disciplined. Raven's mother would banish her from the House of the Black Rose, but this would only serve to harden her further. Raven delved deeper into the shadow world. The mark of the Witch of the Black Rose meant nothing to her anymore. Raven donned new markings and a new look, and she took the name Raven Hex. Raven stole the Book of Shadows from the archive as she plans to raise her father from the dead. Upon hearing all of that, John is like, fuck, as that's all a lot to take in. But as John is thinking about everything he's been told, he's greeted by Tarot's mother. The mother lets them know they have before Halloween on midnight to get all of this done. But Taro asks John if he has any way of finding Raven. John says he doesn't, but Sally and Susan should be able to pinpoint the location of their body. Taro asks John how long has he had the ability to speak to the dead. John says a few years now, as a few years ago there was an accident. It all started the last day John was spending with his girlfriend and his dog. Suddenly a deer bolted out of the woods and John lost control of the car. The group went over an embankment and into a line of trees. They all died that night, but miraculously, John was resuscitated at the hospital. Soon after, John began to be visited by ghosts. First, it was just a few, but then it became a crowd. Then, it was all of them talking at once. John was starting to go crazy, but before long, the ghost of his dog showed up. The dog scattered them and kept them away from John. But eventually he realized the ghosts weren't there to harm him, they simply needed someone to talk to. Some needed reassurance they were dead in order to help them pass on, while others actually enjoyed being earthbound in their new state of existence. But Brandy, John's girlfriend, was not one of them though. Although she chose to remain on this plane, she was not happy about her new existence. Brandy became a spiteful and cynical spirit, but nevertheless, John had a new family, a family of ghosts. But in order to protect the cemetery and keep grave robbers out, John donned a skeletal costume as he had no problem beating the shit out of thieves and grave robbers. That was until last night when those skeletal pumpkins showed up, and then Taro arrived. John asks where his clothes are, but Taro lets him know she had to remove his clothes in order to dress his wounds. She tells John to follow Puka to her room, which happens to be her flying black cat. As John follows Puka, Taro has a conversation with her mother. Taro lets her mom know that her and John shared a vision back at the cemetery. When Taro and John touch, Taro saw a vision of the lover's card. Her mother lets her know that she must be in love, but Taro tells her mother she doesn't have time for love, as time is running out. Meanwhile, back in the domain of Raven Hex, we see Raven with the body of Sally and Susan. See, Raven Hex plans to use Sally and Susan's remains as a catalyst to bring about the resurrection of her father. To be continued.